The FTC approves cancel culture. Hi, I'm Scott Ott with Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, and this episode of Right Angle is brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com. And gentlemen, before we get lathered up, it's not what you think. The FTC actually voted 3-2 along party lines to make it easy to pass a regulation to make it easy for people to cancel subscriptions that they have signed up for. And this was apparently in response to many public complaints that it's very difficult. In some cases, you have to call some office and then some salesperson gets on and tries to persuade you not to cancel the subscription. And so they have basically made a requirement now. They call it click to cancel regulation, that the click to cancel button or link needs to be easy to find. They didn't dictate exactly what has to look or exactly how it functions. Customers can't be required to speak with a customer service agent or even an AI chat bot unless they consented to that upfront when they subscribed. Stephen Green, this is fascinating because this is one of these instances, I think, where people are annoyed by the hassle that you have to go through to figure out how to cancel a subscription online. And nevertheless, if you're a conservative, you're like, do you really want the government stepping into that? The News Media Alliance, which is a group that opposed this, they represent publishers like the Wall Street Journal and others. They said many states already regulate this, so it's not necessary that we should have additional regulation. Steve, what do you think of the idea of having something that even you and I may think is a good thing, not done by government, or in this case, the federal government?
Yeah, that's a big part of it is the federal part, because the Commerce Clause has gotten just all bent out of shape since the New Deal, and I suspect, knowing it like I do, that Bill might want to get into that part of it. So I'm gonna leave that alone. But let me just give you an example. Everybody's been through at least one of these, but I'm pretty good at dealing with them. I've been through a bunch of them over the years. And I keep my office door open pretty much all the time unless we're taping Right Angle or I'm taping with Stephen Cruiser over at PJ Media. And the reason for that is I've got two sons, and I want them to think they can come in and talk to Dad anytime they like. But it also means sometimes they overhear some phone calls. I got to tell you, I'm one of these guys. If there's a choice between let's say a shirt with a logo on it and the same shirt without the logo on it, I'm going to choose the one without the logo. But I don't care about the branding. But I'm so proud of being a Starlink customer. I beam with pride every time I see one of those mesh routers, because that tells me that I'm doing my one small part, the one thing I actually can do to support the best space program in the world. And I beam with pride. But to get Starlink up and running, I had to get rid of Comcast. And to do that, you have to get on the phone and you have to talk to the person. And that person has a script that they're going to follow to get you to not cancel. And my office door is open. It's over summer vacation a couple of years ago. And the boys can hear me put on firm dad voice talking to the Comcast gal. And, if
turns out you can speak four languages.
If you have kids, man, they know when you're using firm dad voice, right? It makes their blood run cold. Fortunately, but it wasn't at them, but it got them listening. And I am trying to do that combination of curt and polite to get through this phone process as quickly as possible, because it wastes my time. And I did just that. I firmly but politely went boom, 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 knocked down all the scripted arguments, and got rid of my Comcast, and I got my Starlink up and running, and I've been so happy and proud ever since. The boys asked me, why are you so mean to that person? I said, I wasn't mean, but I had to get them off the phone and get what I wanted as quickly as possible so as not to waste my time. And I used all the polite words, pleases and thank yous at the start and end of the call. And that's fine. I didn't enjoy doing it. It's just one of those modern hassles in life. And if there's a state law that would make that a little easier, I don't think I would have a problem with that. But Joe Biden has been very into some of these small issues. I call them these Clinton-esque triangulation issues. Clinton was all on the midnight basketball and school uniforms, these tiny little issues that were supposed to not actually accomplish much, but generate positive, feel-good headlines. And Biden is a way to, I think, triangulate towards the center, despite the massive overregulation and the trillions in extra debt and spending, has been using small nuisance issues like these. Hey, we're getting rid of these stupid fees. We're getting rid of these stupid hassles to cancel issues. And that's all it is, Scott, that it is a complete abuse of federal power to mess with a customer business relationship like that. And frankly, I don't want a just overblown statist like the modern Democratic Party has become, using nuisance issues like those as a way to buy my vote while they destroy the country.
So, Bill Whittle, if so many people are annoyed by this, as I suspect that they are, anybody who's ever had to go through it, I guess I have to ask you free marketeer, why isn't your free market solving this problem? Why do we have to have the FTC step in and regulate this? Shouldn't that have been solved years ago by the forces of the marketplace?
Free market capitalism is the idea that people should be able to buy and trade, go about their own business, and exchange goods and services without coercion, as long as they play by the rules. No one ever said that there should not be rules, and if you're going to have rules, you have to have referees. The question is, are the referees refereeing the game, or are the referees actually playing the game? Are they actually on a side? So I'm 100% in favor of a law that says easy to cancel properties, because I was listening to you in your introduction. They said there was like something if you can opt in so that you can something
if you
about
consent at the
having to
beginning
contact
of
customer
a
service
subscription thing to
well,
talking to
I would
a
take that
chat
out of there
person.
right now, because I've already consented to donate my DNA, have my brain sectioned. I don't know how many things are buried in those. Do you consent every time they upgrade the Apple software? But I've consented to everything already, everything. So, and that, by the way, is another thing. Look, we are solidly now mostly into the information age, but in the same way that early stage capitalism had a problem with what to do with the industrial era, we're now at the stage where we have to start thinking about what are reasonable and fair restrictions on an information age economy that are not inhibiting the economy and not taking away our freedoms or merely enforcing the laws. And this would be one of those cases. There used to be a no-call list. And if you were on the no-call list, you couldn't get robocalls. My phone is useless now, and my texts are useless now too, because I once made a critical error in my life. One time in my life, I made a small donation to a political party, and now I get texted by Kamala Harris. J.D. Vance is texting me 4 times a day. My texts are, which was the last line of defense for me, is now useless. I have to go through and delete 25, 30 unwanted texts every day. This should be against the law. Spam should be against the law. This kind of thing is the equivalent of what we saw as I said, in the early days of the Industrial Revolution. We had to come up with things like USDA inspections of meat. I like the fact that I can go to the supermarket, buy a hamburger, and have an extremely high level of confidence that I'm not going to be poisoned by it. And while I don't like government intrusion into our lives, enforcing the rules and enforcing fundamental minimum standards is what separates me from. I hate to even bring up this word because then I'm going to get an endless supply of heat over this. But there is a form of libertarianism that basically says there should be no rules, no inspectors, no license, no regulations, no nothing. That the market will take care of itself. And what I found is that no, most people play fair. Most people are well-intentioned people, and most people who are running a business, when somebody says, I no longer want your services, I'd like to cancel my subscription, honest people do that readily and cheerfully. They may cry about it afterwards, but the bottom line is this is the deal. You're contracting me for services. When you're no longer satisfied with the services, you have the right to terminate the contract. And making this easy is just part of the game. I've had subscriptions where I consider myself to be a relatively web savvy guy. I found documents from 1914 about what was actually going on in Soviet prison camps, and I have had subscriptions that I have not been able to find a way to cancel online. So yes, I'm 100% in favor of this, because to me this isn't intrusion into business. This is simply eliminating the deceptive practice of making it virtually impossible for people to unsign up for things that they found very easy to sign up in the first place. I have no problem with this at all.
Hey, Bill, let me give you an example of why I'm against this kind of thing. And it goes to the heart of the rules always start, or at least they say they start with good intentions, and then they just evolve into sheer idiocy. When we had the stupid COVID lockdowns 4.5 years ago, we couldn't get enough toilet paper. Now, the amount of toilet paper produced in the world did not change. But what changed is where people pooped. They were doing it all at home. There was no more pooping at the office because the office was closed. And you can't sell, because of these rules, these well-meaning rules, you can't sell toilet paper that is packaged for business sale to consumers, because apparently you could die from using improperly labeled toilet paper.
Well, your poop analysis certainly trumps whatever objections I might have had to the issue. But once again, now we're in the world of, okay, if you don't have a virtuous population, you can't have a free society. And if you don't have common sense, then you have to live under a rule of law that defines every single last opportunity out of the system. So I'm just going to go with, we both know the difference between a live horse and a dead one. Let's stop flogging the latter.
Well, I think we previously said on this show that, my freedom to swing my fist ends at your nose. If I impact your nose, then I'm impinging upon your freedom and causing you harm. And so, even the most libertarian view of the law at some point says that individuals shouldn't be harmed by the actions of others. However, when you start dialing it back from injury and taking it to the level of annoyance, then you wonder, well, how annoying can I be? Or maybe it's just a certain personality trait in me from birth that makes me ask that question. It's like, what is an acceptable level of annoyance that I can impose upon somebody else and not be in breach of the law? I tend to err on the side here of if there is a law that needs to be made, it should not be a regulation, but it should be a law. I'd rather not give freedom to the Federal Trade Commission to come up with, to propound these regulations that everybody has to comply with, that no congressman ever voted for. Because we don't elect those FTC guys. We elect the guys who appoint the FTC guys, but that's so indirect that nobody thinks anything of it. So I would rather have our representatives have to make a decision like this. Although when you hear about that, you think, well, gee, that is such a micromanagement of things that go on with our life. And so then I'm thrown back on my inherent free marketism, which says, you know what, if it's really that big of an annoyance, then people will rise up and rebel against the businesses that force them to do it, and they will flock to the businesses that don't force them to do it, and then eventually more and more businesses, as we are seeing, frankly, usually the government is trailing behind what's happening in business. We are seeing that it's become easier and easier in many cases to cancel many services, not all, but many. And so I tend to be hands off on this and just say, yes, I'm willing to live with a certain amount of annoyance to avoid the additional annoyance of having government in every corner of my life. You just can't make a law that says you can't annoy me. I do think that market forces are enough in this case. I will tell you that there is some benefit. And I have seen this benefit myself several times. There have been a number of times when I thought, I really need to pare back on my subscriptions because I've got subscriptions to the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and Washington Post and who knows what other kind of services. And so I decide, I could probably live without having all of these newspapers. And I'm forced to call them and ask them to cancel my subscription. And of course, they then forward me either directly through, they have a script in front of them, that's their retention script, or they forward me to the retention department who tries to hang on to me. And in each case, they have offered me such lucrative discounts that I've stayed. I think once or twice I've actually canceled the subscription, but I usually wind up staying because they cut the amount that they're charging me per month, sometimes in half or more, many times more than that, in order to retain me on their rolls because they want to say they have X number of subscribers. And so while it's a bad thing that I have to make that phone call, I usually wind up saving money as a result of the phone call. So all of that to say, let's still keep the government out of my life. I'd rather deal with an annoying company than an overweening government. For Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making Right Angle possible.